The three heavens in the Bible. Do you think you've understood them all? But what you don't know could change everything. A dark realm full of trials, a place of perfect peace, and a heavenly paradise full of secrets, all contain supernatural truths that only those truly awakened can comprehend. Are you brave enough to uncover them? Watch till the end of the video, for God will bless you on this journey. In an ancient, time-worn church, the dim light from flickering candles cast faint shadows upon the stone walls, where ancient stories quietly linger. The breath of time still seems to hover here, moss-covered and weathered, yet filled with a sacred presence. In these moments, the atmosphere slowly swells with something mysterious, leading the seeking soul to timeless questions. The great question that never truly finds its answer: what is the meaning of the three heavens in the Bible? The three heavens. Three spaces or three dimensions of the spiritual realm. These questions are not new, but for centuries they have remained concealed beneath layers of misunderstandings and shallow interpretations. The vague teachings never offering clear answers. The three heavens in the Bible are not merely representations of space that we can physically see. They carry a profound spiritual depth that few truly comprehend. The first heaven, the sky of the material world. When we look up to the sky, what do we see? Clouds drifting, the wind blowing, the sunlight shining down on the earth. This is the first heaven, a physical space that humans can perceive with their senses. This is the world where we live, where all events unfold, and where we face the challenges of life. The first heaven is a reality that we are all bound to. It is like an invisible veil, keeping our souls locked within it. The material world, though full of mystery, has an unseen power that binds our souls to it. One must struggle with it, face mistakes, failures, but also encounter successes and feelings of pride. However, in those moments when we become absorbed in this material world, we often forget that beyond this veil, there are deeper spiritual realities waiting to be discovered. The first heaven is not just the sky that we see. It is a manifestation of material bondage, of relationships, and all the things humans face in daily life. The cost of transcending this heaven is not the abandonment of material things, but the ability to see the presence of God in all things, even in the most mundane, ordinary aspects of life. It is a shift in perspective. When people begin to realize that God's presence is not just above, but within every moment of life, they step closer to transcending the first heaven. The second heaven. A deeper awareness of the spiritual world. Once the soul moves beyond the material world, it begins to notice the supernatural truths, signs, and events that it could not understand before. This is when it enters the second heaven, where everything starts to change in profound ways. This is the realm of the spirit, where the soul no longer lives solely in the physical world, but begins to encounter the unseen. In the second heaven, the soul recognizes the presence of supernatural beings, angels, spirits, and other spiritual creatures. These are not entities that we can see with our physical eyes, but we can sense them through dreams, visions, and strange emotions. Those who have transcended the material veil will begin to perceive God's presence and other spiritual beings in their everyday life. Interestingly, not everyone can make it through the second heaven. Some souls, after passing through the first heaven, return to the material world because they are not yet ready to face the truths that the second heaven reveals. They fear the unfamiliarity of the spiritual world, the signs they cannot explain. The second heaven is a place of inner struggle. The soul must face the deep darkness within itself, things it has never wanted to see. But if it is brave, it will find that in that darkness, it can find the light of God. It is a deep process of purification and transformation, where the soul's wounds are healed and the burdens of materialism are released. The third heaven, the gateway to heaven. Finally, when the soul has passed through all the trials and suffering of the previous, as two heavens, it stands before the gate of heaven, the third heaven. This is where every soul finds perfect harmony with God, where His love and light shine, dispelling all darkness and pain. This is where the soul experiences eternal peace, absolute holiness, and the boundless love of God. The third heaven is not a place that only those with unwavering faith can reach. It is a transcendent state, where all the limits of materiality and time no longer exist. This third heaven is where the soul returns to God, where all the pain and sins of this world are no more. The soul will live in peace in the eternal presence of God forever. The third heaven is the ultimate state of elevation, where there is no distinction between God and man. Everything becomes one in love, in purity, and in perfect harmony. The soul is no longer bound by anything. It becomes one with the eternal, merging into God and living in absolute tranquility. The great question still echoes in the hearts of all seekers. How can one transcend these three heavens? These three heavens are not mere spaces that we can easily pass through. They are challenges of the soul paths that each person must walk on their own. This journey is not for those who merely look and wait. It is a deeply profound journey, not only of the body, but of the spirit. The first heaven, breaking through the material veil. When humans enter the material world, the first thing they encounter is its mystery, a world full of color, life and joy, but also full of challenges, bitterness, and loss. The first heaven is where the soul begins its journey. It is where we must confront the laws of nature, where everything happens according to a set order that we cannot change. The material world, though mysterious, holds an invisible power that binds our souls to it. One must wrestle with it, face mistakes, failures, but also encounter successes and feelings of pride. However, it is easy to forget that beyond this world, there are spiritual depths waiting to be explored. Anyone can see and perceive things in the first heaven, but very few can see what lies truly hidden behind it. The first heaven is not just the sky we see, it is the manifestation of material bondage, relationships, and all the things that people face in their daily lives. The cost of transcending this heaven is not abandoning material things, but rather the ability to perceive God's presence in everything, even the most ordinary, mundane things. It is a shift in perspective. When people begin to recognize that God's presence is not just above, but within every moment of life, they move one step closer to transcending the first heaven. The second heaven. Deepening the awareness of the spiritual world. Once the soul has passed beyond the bonds of the material world, it begins to notice the supernatural truths, signs, and events that it could not understand before. This is when it enters the second heaven, where everything begins to transform in profound ways. This is the realm of the spirit, where the soul no longer just lives in the physical world, but begins to encounter the unseen. In the second heaven, the soul begins to recognize the presence of spiritual beings, angels, spirits, and other supernatural creatures. These are not beings that we can physically see, but we sense them through dreams, visions, and strange emotions. Those who have passed through the material veil begin to perceive God's presence and other spiritual entities in their daily lives. What's intriguing is that not everyone can pass through the second heaven. Some souls, after crossing the first heaven, return to the material world because they are not yet ready to face the truths that the second heaven reveals. They fear the unfamiliar, the signs that they cannot explain. The second heaven is a place of inner conflict. The soul must confront the deep shadows within itself, things it has never wanted to see. But if it is brave, it will realize that in the midst of the darkness, it can find the light of God. It is a profound process of purification and transformation, where wounds are healed and the burdens of materialism are lifted. Having traversed the burdens of the material world and broken through the spiritual veil, the soul now stands before the final threshold, the third heaven. This is not simply a physical place, but a divine transformation. It is a realm where one is eternally united with God, where the light of His glory overflows, and where the soul experiences the deepest form of peace, love, and purity. But the path to the third heaven is not a simple or immediate one. The journey is long, often difficult, and requires not just endurance, but an unwavering faith and willingness to be completely transformed. The third heaven. The ultimate unity with God. The third heaven is often described as the place of ultimate communion with God. In Christian scripture, it is depicted as a realm where no sin, no sorrow, and no imperfection can exist. This is the realm where one fully realizes the truth of God's love, a love that transcends time-space and every earthly limitation. For the soul that has reached this level, It no longer desires the things of the world. It is no longer tempted by worldly pleasures or earthly ambitions. It exists in perfect harmony with God's will, bathed in eternal light, far removed from the struggles and sufferings of the material world. This realm is not one that can be fully understood or even imagined by the human mind. It is far beyond the grasp of physical senses. The third heaven is often described as a place of indescribable beauty and tranquility, where the presence of God fills the entire space. It is not a place of harsh rules or rigid structures, but one of pure love, peace, and divine order. In this divine realm, the soul finds its true purpose and eternal rest. It has shed the burdens of its earthly existence and is fully embraced in the divine light of God's eternal presence. But the road to this heaven is paved with purification trials and the surrender of all that the soul has held dear in the past. To enter the third heaven, one must surrender their entire being to God, body, soul, and spirit. This is not a simple task, as it requires the person to let go of their ego, their pride, their earthly desires, and to accept that they are nothing without God's grace. The third heaven is not a reward for earthly accomplishments, but rather the outcome of total transformation and total submission to the will of God, the divine light and purification. As the soul approaches the third heaven, it enters a period of intense purification. This process is often painful, as it involves confronting the deepest parts of the soul, those hidden fears, regrets, and sins that the soul has carried throughout its existence. These impurities must be purified before the soul can truly enter into the presence of God. The purification process is like a refining fire, burning away all that is impure, leaving only what is holy and pure. It is a necessary process that ensures the soul is worthy to stand before the Lord. This purification is not something that happens in an instant. It is a gradual process that may take many lifetimes. Each soul must face its own unique challenges, and only by overcoming them will it be able to enter the third heaven. The key to this process is humility, the willingness to recognize one's imperfections and to turn to God for healing. It is in these moments of surrender that the soul truly experiences the power of God's grace. The final transformation, becoming one with God. Once the soul has undergone this purification, it enters the final stage of its transformation. It becomes one with God, not in a literal sense, but in a way that transcends human understanding. The soul no longer exists as an individual entity, but as a part of the divine whole. It is immersed in the infinite love of God and experiences the ultimate union with Him. This union is not a merger of identities, but a deep spiritual connection in which the soul's will and God's will become perfectly aligned. At this point, the soul is no longer bound by the limitations of time and space. It no longer experiences suffering, pain, or death. It lives in a state of eternal peace, completely at rest in the presence of God. The third heaven is a place of absolute fulfillment, a place where the soul finds its true home and purpose. It is the ultimate goal of every soul's journey, the fulfillment of the deepest desires of the human heart to be with God, to be loved by God, and to be fully immersed in His divine presence forever. The return to earth, a call to action. Though the third heaven represents the ultimate spiritual fulfillment, the journey is not over for those who reach this realm. It is often believed that souls who have entered the third heaven are called back to the world of the living to assist others on their spiritual journey. This is a profound and often misunderstood aspect of the third heaven. While it is a place of eternal peace and bliss, it is also a place of responsibility. Those who have reached this level are not meant to remain in isolation. They are meant to share the divine love and wisdom they have received with others. The soul that enters the third heaven is in a sense sent back into the world to help guide others toward the same peace and fulfillment. It is a call to action, a call to spread God's light and love throughout the world. This is the true mission of the soul, to bring others to the realization of their own divine nature and to help them on their own journey toward the third heaven. The soul that has reached this level of transformation becomes a beacon of light in a dark world, illuminating the path for others to follow. Having reached the third heaven, the soul now finds itself not merely in a state of eternal bliss, but called to a higher purpose. The divine peace and unity with God that the soul experiences in the third heaven are not meant to be a permanent retreat into solitude. Instead, they serve as the foundation for a mission that transcends personal fulfillment. Souls that have entered the third heaven are given a divine responsibility to return to the earthly realm and guide others towards the same spiritual realization. This mission is not a burden, but rather a calling of immense significance rooted in divine love and compassion. The call to guide and lead. While the third heaven represents the pinnacle of spiritual fulfillment, it is also the realm where the soul becomes deeply aware of the suffering of the world. The peace and love found in the third heaven are not just for personal salvation, but are meant to be shared with others. In this realm, there is no separation between the individual and God. It is a place of complete unity. But once a soul has experienced this union, it realizes that this bliss cannot be hoarded. It must be passed on to others. The third heaven, in all its beauty, contains a profound sense of urgency. Souls that have reached this state are entrusted with a divine mission to return to the world of the living and guide those who are still trapped in the material world toward the light. This is the true nature of spiritual transcendence. It is not about escaping from the world, but about becoming a living example of divine love and wisdom that draws others toward salvation. It is about becoming a beacon of hope, illuminating the way for those lost in darkness. The sacrifice of the ascended soul. But this mission comes with its own trials. Souls that return to the material world face the challenges of re-entering a realm filled with temptation, suffering, and ignorance. It is a world that seeks to pull them back into its chaotic grip. However, souls that have reached the third heaven are no longer the same as they once were. They have been transformed. They have transcended the limitations of time and space. And now they possess a higher awareness that allows them to navigate the world with wisdom and compassion. The ascended soul is not immune to the struggles of the world, but it has learned to face them with a new perspective. They understand that every trial and every difficulty is an opportunity for growth and for deepening their connection with God. They no longer view hardship as something to avoid or fear, but as a necessary part of the soul's evolution. Their purpose is not to be free from suffering, but to use their wisdom and love to transform it. The soul that has reached the third heaven must learn to balance its divine calling with the reality of the world. It must be willing to sacrifice its peace and bliss for the sake of others, sharing the light of God, even in the face of adversity. This is the true meaning of spiritual enlightenment, to transcend one's own desires and ego in order to serve the greater good. The role of the light bearers, those who have ascended to the third heaven, are often referred to as light bearers. They are the ones who hold the divine light not just for themselves, but for the world. Their presence on earth is not just about their personal salvation, but about guiding others on their spiritual journey. They become living examples of divine love, patience, and compassion, showing others the way to the third heaven. Light bearers do not impose their wisdom on others. They understand that each soul is on its own unique journey, and that true spiritual transformation cannot be forced. Instead, light bearers offer their love and guidance freely, allowing others to choose the path for themselves. They create spaces of peace, love, and understanding where others can come and be transformed. These light bearers live in the world, yet they are not of the world. Their hearts are set on the eternal, and their actions reflect the love and grace they have received from God. They are not concerned with worldly success, wealth, or recognition. Their only concern is to serve God and guide others to the truth, the bridge between heaven and earth. In many spiritual traditions, those who have reached the third heaven are viewed as bridges between heaven and earth. They are the mediators who carry divine wisdom and love into the world, acting as messengers of God's will. These souls are not distant or detached from humanity. Rather, they are intimately connected to the suffering of the world. They are aware of the pain, the struggles, and the confusion that people face, but they also understand that these challenges are part of the spiritual journey. The third heaven is not a place to escape from the world, but a place where one learns to live in the world while remaining true to the divine. The soul that has reached this state becomes a living testament to the power of God's love and grace. It becomes a channel through which divine energy flows into the world, healing and transforming those who come into contact with it. The bridge that connects heaven and earth is not a physical structure, but a spiritual one. It is the soul that has reached the third heaven, who now stands as a beacon of light in a dark world. Their mission is to guide others toward this light, showing them the way to eternal peace, love, and unity with God. They are not concerned with being recognized or praised, but with fulfilling their divine purpose to bring others into the divine embrace of God's love, a call to all souls. The journey to the third heaven is not just for a select few. It is a call to all souls, a call to transcend the limitations of the material world and to embrace the divine. It is a journey that requires faith, humility, and a willingness to let go of everything that holds one back from the truth. But the reward is greater than any earthly treasure. It is eternal, peace union with God, and the fulfillment of one's divine purpose. Every soul has the potential to reach the third heaven, to transcend the world of suffering and enter into the presence of God. The path is not easy, but it is possible for those who are willing to walk it. And for those who have already reached this divine state, the mission is clear: to guide others toward the same eternal peace and unity with God that they have found. The soul's journey through the three heavens is not merely a personal spiritual quest, but a universal one. It is a path that calls every soul to transcend the material world, purify itself through suffering and trials, and ultimately unite with the divine in the third heaven. This journey is not just a celestial ascent, but a profound spiritual awakening that transforms not only the individual, but the world around them. It is a call to all souls to embrace their divine purpose, to recognize their connection with God, and to live a life of service to others. The three heavens, a journey toward unity with God. The three heavens represent stages of spiritual development, each marking a deeper level of unity with God. The first heaven is the material world, where souls are bound by earthly desires and distractions. It is a place of learning and testing, where the soul must confront its weaknesses and limitations. This is where the soul begins its awakening, recognizing that it is more than just a physical being, and that it is destined for something greater. The second heaven is the realm of spiritual awakening, where the soul begins to understand the deeper truths of existence. It is a place of self-reflection, where the soul confronts its inner darkness and purifies itself through divine guidance. It is in this realm that the soul begins to see the hand of God at work in every aspect of life, and it is where the soul learns to surrender its will to the divine. Finally, the third heaven is the ultimate union with God. It is a state of divine peace, love, and fulfillment, where the soul is fully transformed and united with the Creator. In this realm, the soul transcends all earthly attachments, all pain and suffering, and experiences the fullness of God's love. It is a place of eternal communion with the divine, where the soul finds its true home and purpose. The divine call to all souls. The journey to the third heaven is not just for a few chosen souls, but for all. It is a universal call to every being to recognize their divine nature and step into the light of God's love. This journey requires deep commitment, faith, and a willingness to surrender all that is not of God. It is a path that requires the soul to purify itself, to face its fears and limitations, and to transform itself into an instrument of God's will. This transformation is not easy. It requires the soul to let go of its ego, its attachments to the material world, and to embrace the divine purpose for which it was created. But the reward is beyond measure: eternal peace union with God and the fulfillment of the soul's highest purpose. For those who have walked this path, the third heaven represents not just a personal achievement, but a divine calling. A calling to guide others along the same path toward spiritual awakening and divine unity. The role of the light bearers. Bridging heaven and earth. Those who have reached the third heaven are called light bearers. They are souls who have transcended the material world and now serve as bridges between heaven and earth. They carry the divine light not just for themselves, but for the world. Their mission is to share the wisdom and love they have received with others, guiding them toward the same divine union they have attained. Light bearers are not detached from the world. They are deeply connected to it, and they understand its pain and suffering. But they also understand that this suffering is temporary, and that through the light of God, all things can be healed. Their presence in the world is a sign of hope, a reminder that God's love is available to all, and that no one is beyond redemption. These souls have a unique role to play in the world. They are not here to impose their wisdom on others, but to lead by example. Their lives are a reflection of God's love, patience, and grace. They create spaces of peace, love, and understanding where others can come and experience the divine presence. They are not concerned with fame, power, or wealth. Their only concern is fulfilling their divine purpose to bring others to the knowledge of God's love and to help them on their own journey toward the third heaven. The eternal cycle of giving and receiving. The journey to the third heaven is a cycle of giving and receiving. As souls ascend to the third heaven and experience divine unity, they are called to return to the material world and share that light with others. This cycle continues with each soul passing on the divine wisdom they have received, creating a chain of love and light that spreads across the world. The soul that reaches the third heaven is not isolated or disconnected from humanity. On the contrary, it is deeply connected to all souls, and its purpose is to help others achieve the same transformation. This is the true meaning of spiritual enlightenment, not to escape the world, but to transform it. The third heaven represents the ultimate fulfillment of the soul's purpose. But it is also the beginning of a new mission, a mission to guide others toward the same divine union with God. A call to humanity, the path to spiritual awakening. The journey through the three heavens is open to all. It is not a path reserved for a select few, but a universal call to every soul to recognize its divine nature and to step into the light of God's love. This journey requires deep faith, humility, and a willingness to surrender to the divine will. It requires the soul to confront its fears, face its darkness, and purify itself through divine grace. But the reward is immeasurable. The third heaven offers eternal peace, love, and unity with God, a state of fulfillment that transcends all earthly desires. It is the ultimate purpose of the soul, and it is available to all who are willing to walk the path of spiritual awakening. For those who have reached the third heaven, the mission is clear: to return to the world, to share the light of God with others, and to guide them on their own spiritual journeys. The cycle of giving and receiving continues as each soul helps others to awaken to their divine potential. This is the true meaning of salvation, not just individual fulfillment, but collective transformation. As humanity moves toward spiritual awakening, the message of the three heavens becomes more urgent. The call to transcend the material world and embrace the divine is louder than ever. It is a call to all souls everywhere to awaken to the truth of their divine nature and to walk the path toward the third heaven, where eternal peace and union with God await. As the soul moves forward in its journey toward the third heaven, it is not merely progressing along a timeline of spiritual ascent. It is entering a deeper union with the divine, a transcendent communion that defies all the constraints of the material world. The path, though filled with trials, is also suffused with divine light that illuminates every corner of the soul's existence. This light is the very presence of God, and it guides the soul to the ultimate realization of truth. For those who walk this path, the final ascension is a return home, a return to the eternal, where the soul finds its true purpose in union with the Creator, the light of God, a beacon for the soul. The closer the soul comes to the third heaven, the brighter the divine light becomes. This light is not just a physical radiance, but a spiritual force that permeates the soul's very being. It is the light of God's love, and it burns away all impurities, transforming the soul into something far greater than what it once was. Every step taken toward the third heaven brings the soul closer to this light, and each moment spent in its presence is one of profound peace and revelation. But this divine light is not merely a source of illumination. It is also a force of purification. As the soul draws nearer to the third heaven, it encounters this light with all its past flaws and imperfections. The light, however, does not condemn or reject the soul. Instead, it embraces and transforms it, purging all impurities and bringing the soul to its purest form. This is the ultimate process of spiritual refinement, where the soul is cleansed of all attachments to the material world, and only the purest essence of the soul remains. In this divine light, the soul experiences the fullest understanding of God's nature and love. It sees beyond the physical reality and understands the deeper spiritual truths that govern all existence. This light is not only for the soul's illumination, but it is also meant to be shared with others. As the soul grows in understanding, it becomes a channel through which this light flows into the world, helping others to awaken to their own divine nature. The eternal peace of the third heaven. Once the soul has crossed the threshold into the third heaven, it is fully immersed in the peace of God's presence. This peace is not the temporary calm that one might experience in the material world, but a deep, eternal peace that fills every part of the soul. It is a peace that transcends all understanding, for it is a peace rooted in the eternal presence of God. In this state, there is no more fear, no more sorrow, no more suffering. There is only perfect rest and complete harmony with the divine. This peace is the culmination of the soul's journey, the final reward for its trials and purification. It is not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of God's love in its purest form. The soul that enters the third heaven is no longer bound by the limitations of time, space, or earthly existence. It exists in a state of eternal unity with God, where all things are made new, and where every moment is an experience of perfect fulfillment. For those who reach this divine state, there is no longing or desire for anything else. They have been united with their Creator, and they are at peace. The soul is not absorbed into God, but becomes one with Him in perfect communion. This is not a loss of individuality, but a transformation into something greater, something more beautiful and more divine than the soul could ever have imagined before. The role of the redeemed soul, returning to the earth. While the third heaven represents the ultimate spiritual fulfillment, the journey does not end there. Souls who have reached this state are not meant to remain isolated in eternal peace. Instead, they are sent back into the world to continue their mission as light bearers. These souls are called to return to the earthly realm, not to abandon it, but to bring the light of the third heaven to those still caught in the darkness of the material world. The return of the redeemed soul is not a simple act of coming back to life on earth. It is a divine mission, a sacred calling to serve others by helping them see the truth of their own divine nature. Souls that have entered the third heaven are now channels of God's love, radiating His light into a dark and troubled world. They are sent to guide those who are still lost, to help them find their way back to God, and to awaken them to the divine purpose for which they were created. The redeemed soul, having experienced the fullness of God's love, now becomes a vessel for that love, spreading it to all who are ready to receive it. These souls are not concerned with material wealth, power, or recognition. Their sole concern is to fulfill their divine mission, to help others reach the third heaven and experience the eternal peace that they have found. The cycle of salvation. Guiding souls to the third heaven. This process of guiding others to the third heaven is not just a one-time mission. It is a continuous cycle of salvation. As more and more souls ascend to the third heaven, they too are sent back into the world to continue the work of awakening. This cycle of giving and receiving, of sharing divine love, creates an ever-expanding network of light that slowly transforms the world. The more souls that reach the third heaven, the more light that spreads into the darkness. This cycle of salvation is what gives the redeemed soul its purpose. The third heaven is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of a new mission to bring others into the light of God's love. And the more souls that are awakened to the truth, the closer humanity as a whole comes to the fulfillment of God's divine plan. The ultimate purpose of the three heavens is not just for individual salvation, but for the collective transformation of humanity. The journey through the heavens is a path that every soul must take, and each soul that reaches the third heaven plays a crucial role in helping others to find their way. In this way, the third heaven is not just a place of eternal peace for a few, but a divine calling to spread that peace to the entire world. Conclusion of the journey. The journey through the three heavens is a sacred path of awakening, purification, and divine union. It is a journey that all souls are invited to take, and it is one that holds the ultimate promise of peace, love, and unity with God. As souls ascend through the material world into spiritual awakening, and finally into eternal communion with the Creator, they are transformed. But they are also called to return to the world to serve as light bearers and to guide others on their journey toward the third heaven. For those who walk this path, the reward is beyond measure: eternal peace, divine love, and the fulfillment of their highest purpose. The cycle of salvation continues as each soul that reaches the third heaven becomes a part of the greater divine mission. Through the three heavens, humanity is drawn closer to God, and the divine light spreads ever outward, illuminating the path for all souls to follow. This concludes the journey of the three heavens and the divine purpose that awaits those who reach the third heaven. Each soul is called to awaken, to transform, and to fulfill its mission by guiding others on their path to salvation. The cycle of divine light continues, and the journey is never truly over. It is an eternal call to return to God and to spread His love to the world. As the soul transcends the material world and approaches the third heaven, it must ultimately confront the greatest mystery, the divine purpose of its existence. The journey through the three heavens, while deeply personal, is also profoundly connected to the transformation of the entire world. The light that shines in the third heaven is not meant to be contained. It is meant to spill forth into the darkness of the material realm. The souls who have reached this divine state are called to return to act as channels of God's love and wisdom, guiding others to their own spiritual awakening and union with the Creator. The divine mission. Bringing heaven to earth. When a soul reaches the third heaven, it is not merely a solitary achievement. It is the fulfillment of a divine purpose that extends beyond the individual. Those who have experienced the perfect union with God in the third heaven are not meant to remain isolated in blissful solitude. Rather, they are called to return to earth, to continue the work of awakening others, and to help guide humanity toward spiritual enlightenment. The divine mission is not an imposition, but an outpouring of the love that has been received from God. These souls, having tasted the eternal peace of the third heaven, now see the suffering and darkness of the world through the eyes of divine compassion. They recognize that the material world is not separate from the spiritual, but a reflection of the deeper truths that underlie all of creation. In returning to the world, these souls do not abandon the peace they have found, but they carry it with them, sharing it with all they encounter. They are living manifestations of God's love, whose very existence radiates the divine light into the shadows of the world. The role of the light bearer. Guiding others towards divine union. Once a soul has reached the third heaven, it becomes a light bearer. A light bearer is someone who, having been touched by God's eternal light, now serves as a guide for others. Their very presence is a beacon that draws others towards the light of God's love. A light bearer is not someone who imposes their wisdom on others, but someone who offers their love, guidance, and support to help others find their way to God. They lead by example, showing others the path of spiritual transformation through their actions, their words, and their being. The light bearer's mission is to show others that the path to the third heaven is not as distant or unattainable as it may seem. It is a journey that every soul is capable of taking, and the light bearer helps others understand that they too can experience the same divine peace and union with God. The light bearer is a spiritual guide, not a teacher in the traditional sense, but a living example of the love and grace of God. The eternal return, the cycle of divine love. As souls ascend through the heavens, they enter into a divine cycle of giving and receiving. The light they receive in the third heaven is not meant to be hoarded, but shared with others. The more they give, the more they receive. This cycle of divine love flows infinitely, touching all souls, transforming them, and leading them back to God. Each soul that reaches the third heaven becomes a part of this eternal cycle of salvation, a cycle that is constantly expanding, drawing more and more souls into the divine light. This cycle is not limited to individual salvation. It is a collective transformation of humanity, a movement towards the ultimate realization of God's plan for the world. As more souls ascend to the third heaven, the collective consciousness of humanity begins to shift, moving toward greater unity, peace, and divine purpose. The souls who have reached the third heaven are not just isolated beings. They are part of a greater spiritual force that is guiding humanity towards its ultimate destiny. The Great Transformation. A new earth, the ultimate goal of the three heavens, is not only the salvation of individual souls, but the transformation of the world itself. As more souls reach the third heaven and return to the world, they bring with them the divine light that can heal and transform the world. This is not a simple task, and it will not happen overnight. But the divine mission is clear: to bring heaven to earth, to create a world where the love of God reigns, and where all souls can experience the divine peace and unity that exists in the third heaven. This transformation is not limited to the spiritual realm. It will be reflected in the physical world as well. The more souls that reach the third heaven, the more the world will begin to reflect the divine order, harmony, and peace that exist in the higher realms. The world will gradually become a place of greater love, understanding, and cooperation, where the true nature of God's kingdom can be seen in every aspect of life. This is the ultimate fulfillment of God's plan, not to escape the world, but to transform it. The eternal light, the final goal of all souls, the ultimate purpose of the three heavens, is to bring every soul into union with God. This is the goal of all existence, the fulfillment of God's divine plan for creation. Every soul is destined to reach the third heaven, to experience the perfect union with God, and to live in eternal peace, love, and joy. However, the path to the third heaven is not easy. It requires faith, humility, and a willingness to surrender all that is not of God. For those who have reached the third heaven, the reward is beyond measure. But this reward is not just for the individual soul. It is for the collective good of all humanity. The divine mission is clear: to guide others toward the same divine union with God, to help them transcend the material world, and to bring heaven to earth. The cycle of salvation continues, and the journey toward the third heaven is never truly complete. It is an eternal call to all souls to return to God and to share His love with the world. Conclusion. The everlasting call to the three heavens. The journey through the three heavens is not just an individual path, but a collective mission that encompasses all of humanity. Every soul is called to transcend the material world, to awaken to its divine nature, and to unite with God in the third heaven. This journey requires dedication, humility, and a willingness to let go of all that is not of God. But the reward is eternal peace, love, and union with the Creator. As souls ascend through the heavens, they become part of the divine plan to bring heaven to earth. They are light bearers, guiding others on their journey toward the third heaven. The ultimate goal is not just individual salvation, but the transformation of the entire world, a world where the love of God reigns, where peace and unity prevail, and where every soul can experience the divine light. The journey to the third heaven is a path that every soul is invited to walk. It is a path of awakening, purification, and ultimate union with God. And as more and more souls awaken to their divine nature, the world will be transformed, and the kingdom of God will be established on earth. This is the eternal calling of all souls to awaken, to transform, and to bring heaven to earth. Thank you for joining me on this divine journey through the mysteries of the three heavens. May the light of God guide your path and illuminate your spirit as you continue seeking truth. If this message has touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with those who may need this blessing. Remember, God's grace is with you, and He will lead you every step of the way. Stay blessed, and see you in the next video.